I have known Matt Hunt for 6 years and have been fortunate enough to have worked with him for 5 of those years. He is currently in his third year as principal at Glen Elementary School in Durham, where I am the librarian. Matt was recently selected as a semi-finalist for the 2023 Durham Public Schools Principal of the Year, and he was awarded Principal of the Year in 2016 when he served as principal of Northern High School in Durham Public Schools. He spent the first 11 years of his career in Durham at Northern High School, first as a math teacher, and just as an aside, he's still a math teacher, and then as assistant principal and eventually principal at Northern. He attended Williams College in Massachusetts before he played basketball overseas in Holland. He is 6'5", which we debated with some students today, didn't we? And he was a teacher in Boston before he and his wife moved to North Carolina. He also went to Harvard and to another university in North Carolina, which we will not mention here tonight. I could go on and on reviewing his professional history and many accomplishments, but instead I have chosen to tell you about the Matt Hunt I know as a person. I began my career in education 40 years ago, and I learned early on in my career that the principal of a school was the most critical player on the team. Obviously, my colleagues and students were important, but I needed to work in a school with a leader who was professional, had compassion, could motivate and lead in a positive manner, and who would have my back and believed in equity and put children first. And Matt Hunt fits that description. He jokes about his constant, and we mean constant, references to sports and sports analogies, but in reality, that is what sets him apart from other school leaders. He thinks like a coach, and he views his staff as his team. He takes the time to get to know every staff member and every student in his school. There's nothing he won't do for one of his team members on or off the court. He's not perfect, but he makes mistakes and continues to learn and grow along with his team. It should be no surprise that he, like Ted Lasso, believes. He is also the father of two incredible young people who both attend Durham Public Schools. He loves baseball, although the only team he and I can agree on is the Durham Bulls. So it is my honor to introduce you to Matt Hunt. I think you'll see why it was not difficult for me to share my thoughts about him and why I respect him so much as a school leader.
Jeez.
Take it away,
Ms. Januzzi, thank you so much. Dr. Rigsby, Ms. Buckley, Ms. Winham, thank you for inviting me tonight. Ms. Januzzi, thank you for that. I'm emotional and not ready to do this at this point. So, and I know this is probably a time where people are ready to take a break or get a snack or something like that. So I understand if people need to do that now, but thank you for having me. And I'm just going to talk a few minutes about teachers. I knew that I jumped to this opportunity when Dr. Rigsby reached out, knew that there were going to be some amazing teachers on this call. And it's hard to follow Ms. Dorcas also and the topic she shared. My daughter is a sophomore at Jordan High, and I hope she has you as a teacher in their years to come. So we'll be talking about that tonight and signing up for your class. But again, as Paula mentioned, this is, I think, my 19th year in Durham Public Schools. Started as a teacher at Northern High School before teaching in Boston prior to that. And it's my 10th as a principal. And before becoming a principal, I felt like I knew what the power of a teacher was. I thought I understood that. But I think moving out of the classroom, becoming a principal, being able to go into hundreds and hundreds of classrooms and seeing the impact that teachers had, I think that was the really, I started to realize the short-term and the long-term impact of a teacher. My father was my principal in high school. It was awful initially. It became something that was positive. But when I when I moved out of the classroom, he said two things. He said, remember two things. First one was always try to find a way to say yes to your teachers. And number two was never get amnesia. You better never get amnesia and never forget how hard it is to be a teacher. and have tried really, really hard over the years, especially with number two, because um, thinking about what Dorcas said at the beginning, all of us who have taught have experienced that moment or that feeling where, uh, for me, it was the first time in my life hard work did not equal success, and no matter what I did, I felt like I was failing that day, and so to remember that feeling, I think is critical once we step outside the classroom. Uh, as principal, I get a chance to see some game-changing teachers every single day. And tonight, I just wanted to share briefly some of the measurable long-term impacts I've seen from teachers. So if you are feeling like, it's been a grind over the first quarter, wanted to highlight some teachers and some long-term impacts that hopefully will inspire you to keep plugging away, because what you're doing every day, the impact is immeasurable. Teachers make huge decisions every day. In fact, they make thousands, right? Research shows that teachers make 2,000 decisions or more every single day. Some that are huge, that impact the safety and well-being of an entire family, but a lot of them are so small that we don't even realize we're making them in that moment. And those decisions add up over time. They add up to the point where uh, they can have an immense impact and change the trajectory of a student's lives. And at Glenn, we call these moments uncommon moments. Whereas the average teacher may move a student a year's worth of progress, or the average teacher may not change the way a student feels about school or their experience or their self-confidence. But the uncommon teacher can change everything for a student. I want to highlight a few teachers, and I could go on and on and on about teachers I've worked with at Northern, like Miss Wyndham, or teachers at Merrick Moore Elementary, and now teachers at Glenn. But I want to highlight a few where the numbers you can't argue with. Mr. Nuzzi shared, I do talk too much about sports. I probably do talk too much about numbers. Work with a fifth grade teacher now, and won't mention her name, but last year to start the year, 0 of her students were projected to pass the state exam, 0. By the end of the year, more than 80% passed the state exam for the first time in their lives. 16 students that now are moving on to middle school with one, self-confidence, but also, when they're going to a new school and students may just be a number, they're being placed in classes they should be placed in. They're not taking remedial courses. They're being maybe allowed to take electives that they wouldn't otherwise be able to take. And she did uncommon work. She is uncommon and changed the trajectory for those students. There's another teacher. When I moved from Northern High School to the elementary level and had no clue what I was doing, I did one thing that was great, which was I hired somebody who's on this call tonight. It was the first elementary teacher I've ever hired. And she was a game changer. And like the previous teacher, the data of her students is something that is uncommon. Whereas 20% of her students are supposed to be on grade level by the end of the year, routinely more than 60% were on grade level. But she did something that was different last year. Each year, what makes her special, like Michael Jordan, every year he got better with something. There it is, Paula. Michael Jordan got better every year with something. But this teacher last year we looked and we saw that we had a large group of students that were under-identified. And we never want to over-identify students for special education, but there are students who deserve and require additional support. And she worked tirelessly to provide interventions, to help inexperienced teachers with interventions, to develop systems, to the point where she was personally responsible for 4 students now in their 5th grade year having services that they need and they deserve. And without her, they may have gone to middle school without those opportunities. She changed the lives of 4 students for the rest of their career. There's another teacher, Miss Wyndham knows him. He taught English with me when I was teaching math. We had the opportunity to hire him as a gifted teacher through 2 years ago, excuse me. When we first got to Glenn, our team realized that only 6 students out of 600 were identified as gifted, just 1% of our school. And we found that to be an injustice. And when he was hired, he attacked this. He trained our staff. He helped us understand that every student has giftedness, that every student has gifts that we need to uncover. Within 2 years, he was instrumental and helping our staff identify 44 additional students who met the criteria, and not the traditional criteria, but of working with portfolios and creating student work and helping students deliver presentations and things that maybe a common place or a common school would not do. But he was uncommon in his efforts. And now there are 44 students that are moving to middle school. They're taking honors classes. They're taking advanced placement classes. And I think if I think about what Dorcas said at the beginning in her AP class, there are going to be now 44 students that will translate into hundreds, literally hundreds of honors and AP opportunities that those students would not have had if it were not for this one person. And so I could go on, and I could go on and on about data, as any Glenn team member knows here tonight. But I think one of the traits that the teachers that I've mentioned tonight, they all have in common, and they have in common with one of the best teachers I've ever worked with. When I was a first-year principal at Northern, it was, along with the first year being a teacher, it was the second hardest year of my life in terms of just the grind and feeling like I was failing every single day. And in those moments, I would walk to the English hallway, and I walked to the end of the English hallway, and Miss Duffner, who had been at the school for nearly 3 decades, she made magic in her classroom every day. Her class was always centered around social justice. The dialogue was incredible. The writing was incredible. And students who had never succeeded anywhere else were thriving in her room. And the thing that she did that I thought was remarkable was that she made every single student, all 30, feel like they were the most important people in that room. And I wondered, wow, I thought it was just me. She made me feel like the most important person whenever I talked to her. But she made all 30 feel like the most important people in the world in that moment at the same time. And her data was incredible. And the data that I've mentioned of all the people who have changed lives are incredible. But I think that this is the time of year where people are tired. People have worked really, really hard. People are maybe looking to a winter break. But I think in those moments, I hope everybody on this call remembers that tomorrow you're going to make somebody feel like the most important person in the world. And that's really incredibly special. Not to mention the doors, because of your hard work, the doors that are going to open because of your students' data, because of the classes they'll be able to take, because of the relationships they'll be able to form. They'll be better people because of you. And again, it's a privilege to be here tonight. It's a privilege to be able to share some of the stories of the things I get to see now that I'm not teaching, of those game-changing teachers that are changing lives. It's been a privilege to be able to talk with many of you on this call. And Dr. Rigsby, again, thank you for letting me be here tonight to thank the teachers at Glenn and then teachers from across the country.